Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to our Wednesday class, coming to you from here at HeartLight Spiritual Center for you that are joining us online. And we want to welcome all of you that are joining us online. Wherever you are, may you find that place that connects us all, that place in which we are one together. There's a line in a course that says, all consciousness is in communication with all other consciousness. And that's just a wonderful way of calling it the field. You that have heard Taggart's wonderful teachings on the book, The Field, that field is the place in which everything is connected together. So we can go there and transcend all time and space that would separate us as bodies, and that we can be together as one. And that's what it means in the Bible. It says we are the only begotten Son of God. The only one. And everybody project that on a body. That's what the ego does. Projects these universal spiritual principles on a body, because again, that proves the agenda of the ego, which every one of you should know is, I'm not you and you're not me. Thank you. Thank you. That's the agenda of the ego part of our mind. We're not victims to the ego. We are the makers of the ego. It is the part of us in which we have miscreated rather than created. It is also referred to in the Bible as the difference between creation and form. In the beginning, God created, and then God breathed and formed man. So you have, first chapter is about creation, the second is about formed. So we do the forming. Creator does the creating, and then we take what the Creator created and we reform it, because we download it into a lesser mindset called perception. And human perception mostly has its origin in the outer world. In other words, how politics forms us, how religion forms us, how culture, society forms us, education forms us, tribe forms us. These are the people who form us. And when they form us into something that's different than what we've been created to be, then we have these blind spots in consciousness. And what is the blind spots in consciousness? It is the place in which the ego fills with illusion. That's a Some Energetics quote from our book. But I love that. Where there are blind spots in consciousness is where the ego sets up the illusions of our life. And if we have enough illusions and project the illusions, then we have a world based on illusion. Right? Another thing on that I want to say is the Course makes it very clear about the difference in extending and projecting. You see, God didn't perceive you. God extended you as itself and individualized you. You are the extension. But what we did is we went back and looked at what created us and recreated it in our mind as something different based upon what religion told us. So either God became your perception as a Baptist or a Catholic or a Pentecostal or whatever formed that first chakra in you, that tribal chakra in you. That's the God that you made. And I'll guarantee you, if people believe that God, through his son Jesus, physically showed up on the earth, if you're a Baptist, Jesus would have to be a Baptist. If you're a Methodist, he'd have to be a Methodist. If he's Catholic, he has to be Catholic.
But he was a Jew.
Well, they don't believe in it. They don't believe in him coming back, so I guess that's open for grabs. But those who are looking for the manifestation of God in some form are missing their experience with the God within. The ego can keep you looking out there. There's a place in the Bible that says, oh, they shall say, go into the desert, but I am not there. Go to the mountain, but I am not there. For it comes not by observation, for the kingdom of God is within. Isn't that amazing? How blessed are we today? To you that are joining us, if you know and have found the presence and the essence of the sacred, of the divine in you, you are a blessed being. And if you plug into that power, there is great hope for you and for humanity. But it's those that's looking for an illusion to save them, who are shadow boxing, that is in trouble. So we need to get the word out. You know, we're working hard. HeartLight, Some Energetics, poor Tim, bless his heart. Myself, we're doing a lot of things that are piling up on us because of I believe, the urgency of the time, which is a 4D thing. Remember, 4D is time. So time is no longer in the future. It will be. It will happen. No, this is the time has come. Anyway, here we go. 4D. This has been a challenge. 4D is a little more complicated than talking about 3D or 5D will be. Because 4D is a place in which a lot of stuff goes on at the same time. It has to do with all the collective consciousness. It has to do with that consciousness made into patterns of archetypes. And those archetypes begin to come in through those who are open through artistry to make them dark or light. See? You get somebody who's a great writer. That's a 4D thing that they're open to, but it comes in, and instead of writing a book that is for light, they write dark. And what do they use? Characters. Where the characters come from, they come from the archetypes of 4D on the dark side, as we call it. Because remember what we learned about 4D? That when all of the higher information starts coming in from 9, 8, 7, 6, and so on, so it hits that what? Canopy. And when it comes through the canopy, it is supposed to, the idea is for it to divide itself into a polarities that work with each other. Now there's a difference. There's a difference in polarity and separation. There's a difference between dividing something and separating something. You don't want to separate the male and the female in the electricity here in this room, but you want the polarities to work together. If the male and the female work together and they're not in opposition to each other, what they produce is light for you and I to enjoy. That's their expression. We could say that's their child, would be light. But if they come in and they are at odds against each other, and the male part of the circuit wants to be all male, there's no light. And also on the other side, it wants to be all female. That's why even with this time that we're going through between the gender stuff, you got to be careful about the pendulum swinging as far as it did under the masculine, under the patriarchal over here now to the feminine. You really want to find that place between where the two come together and work together. That is the idea of the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang. The light and the dark. This is where dark is not a bad thing. Light and dark working together is not a bad thing. And this is why the psalmist wrote, "O God, make me like you who sees light and dark alike." Is that a good one? Make me like you who sees light and dark, not as two opposing things against each other, battling each other, but let me see them in the polarity of the complement, how they complement each other to produce. All right. So let me give you a little segue into where I kind of want to go today, if we can get there. I'm going to be in the alchemy book today. And I'm going to start on page 45 for you that have the book or want the reference. The fourth dimension is a realm of the human collective mind. The amalgam of individual thoughts and feelings that meld and weave into archetypal patterns that connect all people. There's just some stories that connects people. This dimension holds the memory of the human events throughout 3D time. So 3D itself has its own Akashic record. So just imagine scribes in the higher dimensions of the heavenlies that has been scribing our participation in bringing forth the 3D story. And the 3D story is not that great. It's full of pandemics, it's full of wars, it's full of racism, it's full of prejudice. That is the 3D story that's been going on as long as we know in history and probably beyond. And I'm going to talk about that, where the origin of this is really out of the Bible. This dimension holds the memory of human events throughout time. Remember, 4D is time. So it is time that everything that has been suppressed and ignored begin to emerge on the body politic. Okay? And of course, as this is happening, what is the ego's message? It's all about them, not you. If it wasn't for them. And that's why nothing gets solved in 3D, because we are blaming someone else, and therefore we're looking for something else to come and rescue us. And we don't take the responsibility of entering into the creation/miscreation story. And that's what we call the old melodrama of having the victim, the hero, and who else? The victim, the hero, and the third person. The villain. The villain.
Oh, the damsel's the victim. Okay.
Yeah. So, and this is why the message has been ever since I've been here is grow up. Grow up into the fullness of the stature. Be no more children tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, but growing up in love. Grow up. Be not babes in Christ, suckling on the milk of the word. Do not be a confused teenager in adolescence, not knowing what you believe or who you are, but grow up into spiritual co-creative adultship and take the responsibility of being who you were created to be and why you incarnated into the human story, because you're here to change the story and rewrite the script. Because I don't like, based on what's happened, how it looks like the end could be. I'm ready to change the end. If the end is death, if the end is constant aging, if it's not a good story in 3D. It's not a happy story. It's nothing to really look forward to, but we can change it. And that's my point. We can co-author. We can co-author and have a happy ending. How about that? A happy ending. So this dimension holds the memory of human events throughout time, which is why you can imagine the life of a shaman living in the Amazon or the life of a queen of England hundreds of years ago. You can tap into any of this part of the story, even though you weren't there personally. It is a story that you carry in you collectively. Now this gives us a little bit of a adjustment, I think it adds to reincarnation. I think to start understanding reincarnation vertically versus linear, on a linear level, gives it a whole more richer story. Instead of living a life as a queen and then I lived as a murderer, or I live like this, I think that you really are going to tap into the whole story of being the queen, being the whatever, all the different lifetimes that we talk about. I think that we're going to look at that very differently as we curve in 5D. As we curve in 5D and spiral out of the linear story, now we can write the vertical story. And what is the vertical story? Isness. Be about your Father's business. What do you think the Father's business is isness. The I am. That's why the I am is getting stronger and stronger. You hear more and more people talking about and writing about the I am presence because of that important intersection that we're at where the vertical is coming alive. So you can tap into the Queen of England. Maybe you weren't a Queen of England hundreds of years ago, but the story of the Queen of England is in you because it's in the collective archetype of your Akashic records. You have two levels of Akashic records. You have Akashic records, which is your personal. Then you have the collective story. It is you in the bigger story of humanity. According to the Pleiades, which we have talked about, Pleiades are going to be the keepers of 5D when we get there, but they have been coming through for a long time. The keepers of 4D are the Anunnaki, a race of divine beings who founded water management and agriculture many thousands of years ago in the Middle East.
David, how do you spell that?
Anunnaki.
Okay, thank you. She found it in her notes as she was saying.
Now they show up in some ancient creation epics during and after wild cosmic catastrophes to assist struggling human creatures. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. She says, after many years of contemplating stories about these mythological god and goddesses, so it's not by accident that the Greeks had all these god and goddesses and God, all these goddesses. These are not just made up stories. We call them mythologies, but actually they are the entrance of old archetypes that always brings the story to us, that when we have a consciousness enough at the level, then we know that we can begin to change the story by changing the archetypes. Okay, and this is why you have to look at Jesus really as an archetype, and Buddha as an archetype, and any of the great enlightened teachers as archetypes. And this says that you meet these in 4D. Now I want you to get that, because that means as intense as 4D is and going to be, that you're not going to be without access to enlightened archetypes and beings to help you get through it. Follow me there?
Yeah.
Hmm? Yeah. So this is why I think Yeshua, Jesus, is making somewhat of a comeback out of religion. And I think we all need to be open to look a little more at Buddha and some of Buddha's ideas and teachings. Now, you don't have to be a Buddhist, and you don't have to be a Christian to know Jesus, or a Buddhist to know Buddha. I suggest to you, you get right on Netflix and some of them, and there's some wonderful documentaries about Buddha and the life of Buddha that is phenomenal. You're without excuse. It's right in your own home. It's been placed right in front of you if you'll take the time to do some of that.
That's on Netflix?
Or Prime. Take your pick. I never know which one. But they're on there. And there's a bunch of them. And they're well done and so inspiring to understand that. I have no desire to go be and join the Buddhist teachings. But I love some of the things that Buddha said. I love the things that Jesus said. I've even recently watched one on Muhammad, which has been something I've been rather close to because of the constant media of the extremity of Muslims all being extremists. That is not true. This guy had some real experiences when he was here and lived in Saudi Arabia. See, all these people had experiences, and the people came along and changed it into a belief system and watered it down to be lesser than the experience. Christianity would be so different if they all experienced what Jesus did and built an ecclesia or a community built upon that experience. But instead, they chose to believe in his experience without the experience. Are you with me? Buddha had such an experience of enlightenment, human enlightenment. He didn't claim to be divine. He was human enlightenment. And that's why 5 years later, when Jesus comes along, it wasn't about just human enlightenment. It was about divine enlightenment in the human.
Have you heard, I don't know if this is true, that Jesus was Buddha in an earlier lifetime?
Absolutely. I think all these people were incarnations. I think all the way from Adam to Abraham to Moses to all of them. I think if you read that, you're reading the stages of those. And let me tell you why. I have to use a scripture to tell you why. But we know that Adam, the first one in Genesis, but it says, and Jesus was the last Adam. So that means Adam was a complete race incarnating into enlightenment, and the enlightenment shows up as the man Jesus, who brought forth not a national human enlightenment, but a universal enlightenment called Christ consciousness. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's great to understand that, isn't it? Yeah. So good, so good. We are so good. So after many years of contemplating these stories about the mythological god and goddesses, what channeled through was that the Anunnaki are the keepers of 4D. Because the Sumerian records are some of the most ancient sources that report on the antics of the gods. How many has even heard of the Sumerian? Mm-hmm. Oh my, you really need to check Sumerian out. Sumerian was really one of the first group of gods and goddesses that shows up on the planet in the book of Genesis. And we're getting to that. We're going to talk about these stories later appear as the Akkadian, the Babylonian sources, and then eventually the Hebrew Bible. This is why you don't throw the Bible out. This is why, as much as I'm not a Yahwehist Old Testament, I don't look at the Old Testament so much as spiritually, but I look at it historically. It's a record. It's a historical record. And the children of Israel are the great collective archetype of that story. That's why I use them as leaving Egypt, 3D, going to the wilderness, 4D, and entered into the milk and honey, 5D. See, they give me archetypes. They give me a map to navigate through this time, because in the New Testament says the things that Israel did was examples for us. Got that?
Yeah.
Cool. So cool. To say that these beings seem to be our earliest memory of our creation and survival. The fourth dimension contains myths and stories over many thousands of years. Thus, its sense of time is immense, much greater than the time sense of most humans. A little bit more. I don't want to bore you with reading. The data bank is the same as the popularity known as Akashic records. The records of time that humans such as certain saints, gurus, and clairvoyants can read like a book. Now that's the kind of a psychic you want to seek out. There's different levels of psychics. Don't think that all psychics are really for your spiritual good. And there are good psychics. There's people that's learned how to read you and read what you want, what you don't want, and whatever. But there's a difference in a spiritually enlightened psychic that is there to read your book. Are you with me? I used to use this example. It's simple, but I've used it for years. My divine destiny was to move to Chicago in the 70s. I was just drawn to Chicago, and meeting May and all of that gave me an open to move to Chicago in 72 or 73. But at that same time, I was very much into a group in Cleveland. And Cleveland offered me a great deal to come to Cleveland. You know, it was a larger, in Chicago, I was going to have to start from scratch and build a group. But I had this great group going in Cleveland. They promised me a lot of things. But I didn't really care for Cleveland, the city, as much as I did Chicago. Okay? So I go to a psychic, and the psychic picks up that I really like Chicago. But my destiny, let's say, was Cleveland. Cleveland was where the Spirit wanted me at a particular time in my life. So they say, I see you moving. I go, ooh, yeah. How do they know that? Yeah, I'm in a process trying to move. And I see it's between two places. You got it. And I'm picking up Chicago. I go, that's the one. That's where I want to go. But Spirit was saying Cleveland was in my story. So I did. This is really true. I did go to Chicago. And it was a rough time. It did not take off. I had a lot of issues there. It didn't work. But I went because the psychic gave me what I wanted to hear. She did not read my Akashic record and story and give me my next spiritual step. So please, I just say to all of you, be very careful when you go to anybody who is a practitioner or anybody who's going to be reading your energy or anything like that, to make sure that it's somebody that is skilled, and I mean innerly skilled as much as outwardly skilled, to be able to read your Akashic spiritual story and not what you want to hear. And we as practitioners, that's a temptation that we have, because we want to be liked and we want to be good, right? I mean, everybody wants to feel good about what they did. Look what I did. You know, this person really liked what I did. I've had to watch that, because when that happens, I tend to pull back sometimes from saying things because I don't think they want to hear it. So there's a price to pay to be a true facilitator and channel for Christ consciousness, or the mind of truth, to move through you. You've got to be willing to give it as you see it in the spiritual Akashic record. If you don't, you're going to get off in a bad marriage, a bad relationship. You're going to be sorry. And the ego will make it so great in the beginning. If you don't remember anything else I say, remember what the ego blesses in the beginning is to betray you in the end. Oh yeah, that's what I call the falling in love syndrome, where you're knocked out consciously, and all of a sudden they like everything you like, and it's just all so wonderful. And then down the line, you start seeing them in a different light, and that's why you don't want. And I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about every level of relationship should be very carefully a spiritual frequency match. It's got to be a spiritual match. You don't have time for the other right now. You just don't have time for detours. You don't have time for third dimension foolishness of following your emotions and knocking you out consciously. You don't need to go through another relationship, another divorce, another this, another that. That's all 3D, and that's the end of your world. Let the end of the world happen. I guess I'm just saying we need to be extremely focused and serious about ourselves. All right, trying to get something here. And regardless of the truth, the Anunnaki and the planet or star that they said to come from is currently the source of great fear for many people. So we're going to talk about what's the origin of fear that began to control 3D. And out of that came our religions. The majority of them were fear-based. Not all of them, but many were. Once again, here is the age-old device used to cower people into fearing God and the end of the world. She said, I'm happy on this point because this confusion is actually a misunderstanding of the dimensions. 5D is feeling, 3D is physical. Now, I'm getting to something. Because 4D feelings are so intense. Remember, we've talked about that. That's why the poles are intensely charged right now, politically and every which way. You just can't think differently than somebody else without some kind of attack or to the point of being shot. Anything in between. 4D feelings are so insane. They seem to be real for some people. Ultimately, I've concluded the Anunnaki are actually a central control device of the global elite. That's what I'm trying to get to. This is going to get heavy, but stay with me. So who are the global elite? You have to ask, who are these people that are so wealthy and so powerful that they alter the direction of 3D, whether it's finance, politically, or in any system? There's only a few that can come together but be so powerful that they can direct the direction of different systems in 3D. What you hear today is not the majority of people. You don't hear the voice of the majority of people on some of these controversial issues that are going on right now. You're just hearing the voice of a few people that have enough money, have the control over the media enough to put their voice out there so strong that we think like it's so powerful and it's everybody. Because those of the masses don't have that opportunity to have that strong a voice. We talk about free speech TV. Very seldom do I find somebody really knows about democracy now and free speech TV. I know they have a following, but there's very few that even know about it because it's kind of hidden among the many hundreds of cable stations out there. But I'll tell you what, CNN is louder, Fox is louder, all of these major networks, which if you look behind them, are more controlled by an elite group. Now, I'm not trying to get into conspiracy theory. I'm not trying to get on one pole or another. I'm just trying to give you facts that there's too much control going on at the top by a very few people who have the power. I mean, somebody who has the power to buy Twitter. for what, $54 billion or whatever ridiculous thing it is. I mean, for one person to have that kind of power and money is a little concerning to me.
Yes, I agree.
And pretty soon it's going to be this one or this little group that owns everything, and everything will be a monopoly, and there will not be any sense of a community at all. Oh, here I go. Somebody's got to say it. And I think sometimes in New Thought, we've become too lay back with it. We want to just keep positive. Yes, keep positive, but keep accurate.
Right.
Be the light. Be the light. Don't just teach it. Be the light. Okay. The Anunnaki are actually a central control device of the global elite, a program used to found religions that control the human race by inciting fear. This 4D program may go back more than 10,000 years. Now, if you study history, you'll see 10 to 12,000 years is when we went into dominion over the earth, men over women, and all the stuff that Genesis talks about was at that time. We went into reductionism, domestication of animals and plants. All these kind of things happened around that time. Which is what the Bible means when it says, in a beginning. A beginning of what? Oh, no, it says the beginning. No. In Hebrew, it's a beginning. It was the a beginning of our adolescency. It was the beginning of gods, plural, who begin to take control of 3D. Because some modern writers have concocted some very bizarre stories about the Anunnaki, such as claiming they were extraterrestrials, but the original sources that describe these beings do not support this idea, according to this author. I don't know about that. Regardless of the truth, the Anunnaki and the planet of star they said to come from is currently a source of the fear of many people. Fearing God at the end of the world, I am harping on this, she says, point because of this confusion is actually misunderstood. So, let's talk about the Anunnaki. See how we can do. Or the Sumerian gods. There is... I can't think. Tim, you might help me with this. Who wrote the 12th planet? Huh? Yes. Zacharias Sitchin. His books are heavy duty, but he wrote the 12th planet and a whole series of books that were quite enlightening and famous about all of this. So, I'm going to take the story right out of the Bible. The Bible is going to give us this. I told you many, many years ago, I don't even know what decade it was, but many years ago, I was told in a download, a prayer, meditation, whatever it was, that the Bible was coded. It was coded, and it said, do not throw it out. When you throw it out, you throw the code out. And without the code, you will not make an easy, swift transformation into the next level of our evolution. And I hope all of you are glad I didn't, because a lot of you did. I don't understand this Bible. I don't like what's in it. I don't like this God. All this injustice in here, and you just threw it out. I didn't. I've held space for you, because we want to crack the code. So let's start with Genesis. What does Genesis mean? beginning, the Genesis. Isn't it interesting that from Genesis we also get words like genetics? What is beginning in the DNA of Earth human? Now I'm going to make a statement, and this is a tough one, because the ego wants to project this wonderful teaching of truth that we're all one and of the same source, which is true spiritually, but it is not true biologically. And that's why biology has made sure that we all don't look alike. That we're not all Caucasian and white, we're not all people of color, we're not all Asian. There had to be a variety, even in nature, there had to be a variety to show us the diversity that we are dealing with in the outer sense of the world of form. So in a beginning, God. We'll just take this slow because I don't want to go real fast with this. Should read in the original, in a beginning, the Elohim. Now that's going to read differently than in the beginning, God. Because now you think there was nothing before the beginning. We know that is not true today by science. I mean, religion didn't quite get it, but this is where you needed science, because religion shut down in the boundaries of dogma and doctrine and organized itself. But science said, let's keep researching and studying. So there is a branch of science that is very important to marry with spirituality.
Quantum physics?
Quantum physics is the marriage. Yes, is the marriage between spirit and science, called physis. And the word physis, we get the word physics. So what is physis? When Plato and Aristotle, they all understood the four elements of everything. Everything had earth, water, air, and fire. And Socrates, or one of them, don't hold me on which was which there, but during that time of Greek thought, it came, they decided, no, there was a fifth. Isn't that interesting? A fifth. And they called it the quintessence. The quintessence. And the word quintessence ends up as the word ether. And the word ether ends up in religion as the word spirit. So they added to earth, water, air, fire, the word spirit first. The essence. I love the word essence. Say the word essence.
Essence.
It's just, I like that. Did that feel good? Essence. Now give me a definition of essence, somebody. Simple. Simple. Tim, you don't count. He can't help himself.
The most authentic part of it.
Very true statement. Let me give you a simple definition. That's something that makes something what it is. Now, I can say there's a chair. But the essence of the chair is the plastic and the screws and all the things that make the chair a chair. And then you have to go back and find out what made the plastic plastic. There's always something that makes something what it is.
Petroleum mixed plastic.
Well, the ego wants to control it, yeah. So in the beginning, the Elohims created heaven and earth. And the earth was without form and void. I won't get into all of that, but that's a very important statement. So what I was told to do, I would say it's in the 70s that this happened. I'm really guessing because I don't know. It's all a blur after 6 decades. But I was told to take the Bible, translate it from English to Hebrew, then look up the definition of the Hebrew back into English. In other words, what does it mean from Hebrew, not from English? And boy, I found differently than reading it in English, but when I read it through Hebrew back to English, I found that one word had a whole list of words. Then it said, take that definition of those words and look it up in the dictionary. And the dictionary would uncode, would interpret the code. So that's what I did. So let's start by taking the word God. Now we all know that God is a rather new term. It's not very old. I know everybody wants to think that the supreme creator called itself God. But no, we called it God. We called it God. But there is no word God that I know of in any of the original languages. And not in Hebrew. In fact, God is more influenced by the German term for good, which is Gott or Gut. I get which one it is. Gut?
I think, well, I know that Jews don't say the word God.
No. I understand that, yeah. And they're right. How do you say something that is without beginning, without end? So they had something there. But anyway, we decided we wanted to market this thing we can't identify. This thing we can't label. We decided to give it a label because we're going to write a story. And we need a character. So God becomes the character based upon the ultimate good in German. So I looked up the word Elohim. Elohim, I found out meant, first of all, gods, little G-O-D-S, gods, both male and female. So there was God and goddesses. So it was like basically a collective group. It wasn't just God, because this God here, according to the writings of the Hebrew Bible, is I am the Lord God, there is none beside me, I am one. That's it. And I know that sounds good to us, to think anything has the word one to it. We like that. But you don't want something that's one that doesn't include you. Then it's not one. Are you following me? Yeah. If God is all power and God is separate and not you, then you have no power. So you got to worship the thing that's got all the power. Now get this. And worship at that point becomes the transfer of your power to it, giving it power, which is your power. And that's something. So we fed the illusion of what we have made God to be anthropomorphic. I know. I still like that word. I know it's a big word, but it's good. It just merely means, means that we take something in the abstract and make it look like us. So what did God end up being? The old man in the sky with the beard and the robe, sitting on a literal throne up there, peeking through the sky, which were stars, watching it to see what we were doing, good or bad, and writing it all down so that at the end of death we will be judged. That's the religious story. And of course, what did this do? Took us completely away from where the presence was which is in ourselves. There's no story that says God, using the term, and I'll use the term God for communication, that God decided to put himself on a mountain, and then he changed his mind and said, no, because they'll find me. No, I'll put myself in the river. He said, no, they'll eventually find me. Went through all these things. I'll put myself here and there. Oh, they'll find me. And he got the idea. He says, I know the last place they'll look is in themselves. So God hid himself within human itself. So now I want to go over to the 6th chapter. And it says, and so you have this group, in my version, coming down out of the sky. Now you can say literally out of the sky. If you believe that, then probably you disagree with this writer and say they probably came from another star or constellation or another planet, or we could say another dimension. I don't think that's enough to debate the literalism of that, but they came from another place, another dimension. Wherever they came from, they were extremely, intelligent in technology, very advanced in technology. But what they lacked was a soul, an emotion, and feeling. They'd be more like AI today. It'd be more like an intelligent robot that's programmed and sounds really smart. My Alexa thing, she's just getting an attitude, I tell you. She's getting way too smart. She's almost arguing with me.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, something's really going on there. It's kind of spooky, but she thinks she knows what I want sometimes when I ask for something. She says, no, Amazon played this, I said, I didn't ask for that. I thought, this is crazy. But the thing is, computers and technology are beginning to take on their own consciousness. It's no longer just the program. We have programmed them enough to evolve them to the level that they're beginning to activate a consciousness of their own. So all of you that's having all this trouble with computers, and somebody just said to me today, I don't know what's going on with my computer, with my phone, whatever. Everybody's saying that something's going on. I'd love to blame China or Russia or something like that, but I see the bigger picture that what is happening within the collective technology of computers that has created itself a consciousness that is so strong that it is beginning to become conscious of itself.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a concern. I personally think we've already been through that in Atlantis. We destroyed ourselves with technology because we didn't spend enough time raising our consciousness to meet the level of the technology. And the thing that we invented became the thing that came back to destroy us. So I realize they've got us cornered. I don't know how. How would you make it very long without any kind of electronic device? I know there's people out in the boondocks somewhere that's not doing it, but they're very few, and they're living a very challenging life to some degree to do that. But to live and survive in this dimension, you almost need to have some kind of electrical device. And we won't even get into 5G. Just think, 5G, 5D. Does the ego have its own answer to the evolution to 5D? That's another story. I don't even know the story. I'm just saying it's worth being aware of. That's why people, I think we need more and more on learning how to protect ourselves. I know this seems so familiar to us, but surrounding ourselves with white light. We should do that every day, several times a day, before you go into anything where there's a lot of people. It's not just about that virus. There's another virus that we're dealing with in another dimension that would like to take us out. Oh, my time is going. So remember, mankind 3D was given the power to be the caretakers. So here they begin to multiply on the face of the earth. God did not, their God here, did not multiply them. He gave them its ability to multiply. And they began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. Of course, because there was a feminine side and a masculine side. There was God and goddesses of the Elohim. I'm not going to get very far on this. So let me end this way with trying to give you a visual. Let's say that we're all passionate to do missionary work. We really want to help some of these struggling countries that are out there, and there's plenty of them, that's starving and being massacred and women being raped and horrible things that are going on. And let's say that we have that passion, that we decide we want to join up with a missionary team and go over and help educate and bless these people. So we get together. Now these people are primitive. Maybe they've never even seen an electronic. They certainly haven't seen an airplane. So we go and we rent a big airplane, and they're doing their thing, and somebody hears something and looks up, and here comes this big bird flying down out of heaven. It's just us. We don't think anything about it. You packed your electric razor or your hair dryer. Maybe you had a little device, a recorder, all the things that you use and don't think a thing about it every day, but you bring it with you. You packed it. So here you come sweeping down out of the sky. You look totally different. And you come down and all these gadgets, voices start coming out of things, and things start out they've never seen in their life, and they believe the gods have come to visit them. And you're going, you don't have the ego like, oh no, we didn't come here to be worshipped. We didn't come here to be gods. We just came here to try to help you. But they are so in awe with us that they begin to bring us food, and they build a palace for us to live in while they live in little huts. And we're going, no, maybe. It's not too bad. Being waited on, being worshipped, and pretty soon we just let ourselves be gods unto them. Even though what we do is average to us, it was supernatural to them. I believe this is exactly what happened when the Anunnaki came, that they came with great skill and great technology that overwhelmed the earth seed. Adam is the earth seed coming from the earth. And next week, stay tuned. But where do we fit into this story? Where do we fit into the story of the split of the Elohims? Why are we who we are when masses of humans are still trying to evolve out of the mud of evolution?
Good
Yeah, I mean, why are some people just trying to get up out of the mud of the earth to be even fully human? Some people do not act very human sometimes at the things they're capable of doing. So we have all kinds of things playing out right now that's been going on in 3D that is ready to be exposed in 4D. Masks are going to come off. Babylonian garments are going to be ripped off, and we're going to stand in the nakedness of our authenticity, exposed. Nothing shall be hidden. Everything in secret shall be revealed and shouted from the housetops. Every secret society, everything that has been held in the archives of basements of religious institutions and other secret institutions will be made available in this age of information. Well, let's take a moment. I knew it's going to be heavy duty today. And thank you so much for stepping up, and to you that are joining us also. Please contemplate these things. Ask the Holy Spirit in you. He said a lot, you might be saying right now. I didn't get everything it said. I wasn't sure I understood everything. But know within you is the universal mind, the Holy Spirit, to teach you and guide you into all truth. What is your truth today is what is important. What spoke to your heart, what spoke to your mind. That's what's important. So Holy Spirit, we turn it all over to you to guide us, that throughout this week we will have many epiphanies of what has been said today. And we'll say many times to ourselves, oh, I see. I get it. I didn't get it then, but I got it now. Because you see, if you get it from me, you want to get it from yourself, because when you get it from yourself, you have your own I am code on it, called self-knowledge. You don't need David's knowledge. You don't need anybody's knowledge, because all the knowledge of the universe is centered in you. Just be willing to receive it. It may be in dreams, vision, meditation, picking up the right book, right page of a book you haven't even looked at for years. You don't know how it'll come, but it will come. Always in a way to expand your consciousness. Take a deep breath. And exhale.